Welcome back to Call Me By Your Game, the podcast where I, your host, Connor McCabe, bring on a guest to hear from them about a meaningful or memorable video game from a particular moment in their life. On the show, we get into as much about what made playing that game special and memorable to our guest, as we will dive into the context of when and how they had this special time with it. A little bit of housekeeping up top is that anything that my guest or I plug today, if you're interested in following one of those links somewhere, down some sort of rabbit hole or social media site or other podcast, who knows, there's going to be links in the show notes. So wherever you're listening, whether it's on YouTube or on the Apple Podcasts or Spotify stores, if you scroll down, there's links for you to click. I've made it so gosh darn easy for you. How about that? There's plenty of stuff you can follow there as you hear us plug along today. And first and foremost, if you're following the show, thank you so much. Check out our TikTok page. That's the thing I've been pointing people towards lately. We started doing TikToks about 2 months ago, thanks to this team called Storylines, who's been helping us sort of find great clips in our episodes. So yeah, shout out to Storylines. Check them out if you got a podcast and you're interested in having highlights made, but you're intimidated by that. Yeah, give them a shot. Other than that, anything, whether I'm plugging our Patreon or social medias, there's links in the show notes. But that'll do it for the housekeeping. And I'll finally introduce our guest for today's episode. So please welcome writer, improviser, and child star, Sydney O'Toole.
Hi, so good to be here.
Hey, welcome. You're in the esteemed halls of the podcast now. Sydney, how do you feel?
I feel great. And I do want to say it's not easy being a child star at the age of 34. But I encourage people to try it because it is a fun way to go about the business.
Yes, regardless of your age, if you haven't tried it, no better time than now. No better time than the present. I with a lot of things, Sydney, I feel like we can, when I say we, I mean the proverbial we'll cut ourselves off of going for something because of our age, and just like anything, this is no different. Just go for it.
Just do it. If being a child star calls to you, don't pull yourself out of the race, just because you're not technically a child. No need. No need. And feel free, listeners, to contact me if you need any tips on that.
Huge. Wow.
Yeah.
You could be a sort of a mentor of sorts.
Absolutely. I would love to do that. Yeah.
Well, amazing. What a kind offer from you already. Sydney, I'm so happy to have you on the show. You are someone that I've known for, well, I don't need to put a date on it, but we've technically known each other for, it'll be 8 years at some point this year. And I feel like we were just talking about age, and that aged me a bit, even talking about that. But we met through the Los Angeles improv scene, and we were actually on our first ever, well, at least my first ever, I always forget if it was yours, first ever performing team, the Interns, together.
Yes, it was mine too. Famously to me, it was my first indie team. Yes.
We've had a few other interns on the pod. We've had Jess has been on, Jess, Liz, and Anna. Sauger has a standing invitation. It hasn't worked out quite yet.
Okay, well, Sauger, I don't know what is going on with you, but why don't you start responding to Connor's emails?
Sauger, are you busy? Are you busy with like a life-changing project right now?
Oh, are you on camera a lot? Yeah. Are you traveling for work?
You can't record on camera? Sauger actually tunes into this because he saw your name on it, and he's like, Jesus Christ, why did I even do this? But yeah, that's how we got to know each other. And, we've talked about it before, but I remember we always got along, but it was after we did the Los Angeles Indie Improv Festival. I believe that was 2016. And it was like after that show that we had, I remember talking to you and Mike and was just like, you are so funny. I am such a fan of yours. Even though we had been on a team together for a while, I was like, that really drove it home. I think maybe we got to share some stage time together, and that was what it was.
You know, we had some scene where we were typing next to each other. I remember.
It's putting me back. I do remember sitting on the Clubhouse main stage doing this.
Yes, and I don't know what we were doing, but the audience was eating it up, and
yes,
I think we both just felt it was encouraging to both of us. I remember being like, okay, maybe I can do this, you know?
Absolutely. Like I think we had each had, at least enough chances to, perform at least a little bit around like on indie stages and whatnot. But that was the first show where like there was actually a substantial audience. And because it was part of an improv festival at like kind of a great time slot, I'm just trying to echo what you said. It was really cool and kind of affirming for me, at least.
Yeah, definitely. What a time. And weren't we all dressed up like business people?
We were. And I specifically remember, I apparently on our submission form that I'm assuming Val or someone filled out, probably Val or Jess.
Someone responsible.
Someone said that we would all be in tuxedos. And so we were all just in kind of like business casual. Some of us had suit jackets on. And one of the organizers of the festival, I think, like, was not joking around and was like, yeah, you all said you were going to be in tuxedos, and was like mad at me for it. And I was like, okay, this person, not to rub salt in any wounds, but has since been ostracized from the community for a not so great moment. I don't need to get it.
We don't need to get into that, but the truth is they were actually canceled for the tuxedo thing.
Yeah.
That was the straw that broke the camel's back.
It was complaining about that and not anything else. I just had it was this moment where I was like, why are you being hostile to me about this? Everyone's having a great time. Anyway.
And you thought we were all going to rent tuxedos for this? No.
That's on you, pal.
Yeah, that's really on you.
Gosh. That's just sort of like one of those standing moments and memories. We performed on that team for a little bit together for into like 2017, I want to say. But you I'll say came back into my life about a year ago. Unbeknownst to me, you were just back in improv. You were doing your thing. And little do I know, Herald stuff like news comes out. Which peek behind the curtain. We're recording this in a time of limbo. And look, and you made it on Herald Night, and I was like, wait, is that the Sydney O'Toole that I know? And it was.
I know. It was so funny. You were like, I'll always remember your reaction to me getting on Herald. I think you commented or you texted or something to me. You were like, what is this, 2016? And I was like, that is so true. Because that's also how I felt, because I had quit doing improv for like 5 years and then got back into it. And so funny. So funny to get to surprise you that way.
Yes. It cracked me up. It was surprising only in that I hadn't. Well, I'm not really involved in the indie scene anymore like I used to be. We also had a pandemic that had happened between then and now. So it was a surprise to me in that I didn't know you were doing improv, but it wasn't surprising because you were always so funny and had seemed to have a really great the idea of what was funny to you. And I think that's the most valuable thing you can have as an improviser. And so it was awesome when you did get on, and here we've got to hang out a bit more this year, and we're back, baby.
Thanks, Connor. And thanks for saying those nice things. I do need the validation. So anytime.
You betcha.
Yeah.
Hey, who knows? Maybe we'll be doing more validating over the next couple days.
Maybe we'll be texting each other with some real calls for help, cries for help.
Yes. Hopefully only mild ones for the two of us, but we'll see.
Mild. Hopefully the mildest, yeah.
So that's how we know each other. We've gotten to, spend a little more time with each other this year, say hi, hang out a bit. But is there anything else you want to share with yourself? Goodness. Share with the listener about yourself that we haven't maybe touched on today?
I tried to clean my own car seats this weekend and it didn't go well.
Okay, are we talking leather? Are we talking?
No. If we were talking leather, I think it would have been so much easier. We're talking fabric. And I knew it was a problem when I started leasing the car. I knew it was the downside. And anyway, I bought myself a fancy machine. I actually asked for it for my birthday from my husband. And I tried to use that machine this weekend. And while it wasn't a complete disaster, it did not achieve the results that I wanted. And listeners, that's what I want you to know about me.
Goodness. Okay. You know what? That's illuminating.
Oh, good.
I'm so sorry that this happened to you. Do you want me to dig into the thing you're dealing with more, or is that where you want to leave it?
Yeah, I think we should leave it there.
Great. Well, Sydney, thanks for sharing just an additional important illuminating fact about yourself and just your current state with myself and the listener. We are going to get into your history with video games in just a second. But before we do, will you tell the listener what you've brought on today to discuss later and call me by your game?
Absolutely. Today, I have brought with me a game that's very close to my heart. And it is called Christmas Disaster.
Christmas Disaster. Okay. I cannot wait. Occasionally we'll have people bring on games that we've discussed in the past on the show. This is not one of them, so you got it all to yourself. I can't wait to get into it on the main event a little later. But before we do, let's talk about your history with games. We peek behind the curtain for the listener. Why that is something I say. There's a few phrases, Sydney, that I just say repeatedly on this show that I'm surprised we have as many listeners as we do, because if I were them, I would probably have stopped listening, because I'm like, Connor, you say these things every episode. Peek behind the curtain for the listeners, fine. One of them.
I think it's good to have like calling cards.
Yes. You know what? I'm consistent. And sure, is that consistency a stale wafer? Sure, but it's consistent.
Yeah, oh, yeah. No, I think lean into it.
Huge. Well, we had talked before the show that you're not a huge gamer. No problem. We have all sorts of you on the show. I will start, though, by asking, do you remember like some of your earliest memories either seeing someone play a video game, whether it be computer or console, or playing anything like that yourself?
Yes. Okay. So when I was a child, my brother and I were obsessed with Zombinis.
The logical journey of the Zombinis.
Thank you. Zombinis. Yes. Zombinis. Thank you. Yes. Yes.
Oh boy.
Really huge for us. Lots of time spent on the landing in my childhood home where the computer was.
Yes.
Just, I mean, hours and hours and hours. And our parents would be like, does anybody want to eat today? And we'd be like, get out. Get out.
Your mom was bringing you, oh gosh, there's a quote from that game. So this game comes up a lot.
Does it?
And we've done, so this is an unapologetic plug for our Patreon. Every month I do a sort of roundtable version of this show where me and more than one other person discuss a game either that was like meaningful to the group of us from our past or like something new we've played. Very different than this version of the show, but we did an episode on this game almost 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yes. So it's popular. I even was talking to a couple of friends at someone's birthday party this weekend, a little popular, and it got brought up organically there, not by me. So it's very popular. What do you remember about this game?
Oh, God, I just remember there were tiny, tiny little creatures, and you had to get them across rivers and stuff.
Yes.
That's really all I got.
Yeah, it was like, to give you, maybe this will jog your memory a bit, it was a sort of like it's in the title, Logical Journey of the Zombinis. It's a lot of like logic puzzles for kids. I replayed this game for the podcast a few years ago, and I was really blown away at the wide range of difficulty levels. Like there's a very easy level and a very hard, and the hard difficulties they kind of break your brain. So as a kid, even the easy ones are probably like, I don't know what this is. Like, why aren't they they're not letting certain Zombinis across the river? Is it because of their hair? Is it because of their shoes? Because you customized every one before you went on your journey.
Okay, yes. And I had forgotten about that aspect, but it makes a lot of sense as to why I was so into it. Because then later I got very into The Sims. And a lot of that is all about, the kind of creation of the person.
Yes. Was, from your best, to the best of your knowledge, was there anything between this like sort of Zumbinis phase and The Sims that you messed around with?
Absolutely.
I didn't want to skip to it, but I was kind of curious.
I'm really glad you asked. Mall Tycoon.
Is this like Roller Coaster Tycoon, but for making a mall?
Yes.
Oh, tell me about this.
Oh my God. Well, I played Roller Coaster Tycoon as well. But I mean, all you need to do, my friend, is map mall specifics onto Roller Coaster Tycoon, and there you got it. And yeah, you're building malls.
That's amazing. Sorry to ask you just details about this game, because I know these are from the distant past at this point. But for you, was this something that like you were customizing? Like, okay, there's like a clothing store here. There's the food court. Do you remember anything like that?
I think that I used to take pleasure in setting up the mall to as closely as possible replicate Fashion Island, where I was going constantly as a child in my hometown.
Your hometown mall was called Fashion Island?
Oh yeah, you don't know about this?
I don't.
Oh, well, it comes up in the OC.
Oh, okay, very cool.
Yeah, very cool, I know, yeah.
Marissa
has a fashion show there.
Say it again, sorry?
Marissa has a charity fashion show at Fashion
No way.
Island.
When like UCB was coming back in fall of 2022, because the date is important. Yeah. Amanda was rewatching the OC, and I had only like known about it culturally. So I sat down with her and watched a handful of episodes, and now I'm like, I gotta ask her as soon as we're off this pod about Fashion Island.
Yeah. Yes, you should. The OC is so good.
It was like, it felt iconic at the time. I remember as a kid when it was coming out, it was like huge. And then nowadays it's something that still holds like a place for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're telling me you haven't seen a lot of it.
I've seen maybe 5-6 episodes of the 4-season run.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you what, no need to watch those last 2 seasons. My husband would disagree with me. He finds a lot of value in that 3rd season. I think he's really lost it. I think he's really jumped the shark there. I think stick to the first 2 seasons. Here's what I want you to do. Get yourself just a little sick. Have a cold or something. And just spend like 3 straight days ripping through it. All right. And I think you're going to have a great time.
That is a plan I'm going to make soon. Also, thank you. You've just given me a nice little a conversation starter with your dear husband, whom I love, and
yes,
I mostly see in passing. But those moments are they're so lovely and they're so fleeting. That was kind of a tangent for us talking about Mall Tycoon, which truly had never heard of it. That's an amazing discovery for me. Yeah. This episode's already a 10 out of 10. Was The Sims kind of like that next step for you, I guess?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Awesome.
And what's going on with me in The Sims is I got into it in high school and then really brought it to college with me. And will share that I spent all of freshman year in my dorm playing The Sims. And of course, dressing up to go to the dining hall. And that was it for me.
Oh, no. No, this is where... It's like we could do a whole episode on these other games. Were you just like a shut-in? Were you like antisocial? Because I just don't know you to be that person now. Not that I know you weird. The best, but
I think I was out of my element. I hadn't yet made great friends. I made good friends with one of my roommates, my suite mates in my suite, and she was obsessed with The Sims as well. So we spent a lot of time playing together before dressing up to go to the dining hall. And then my best friend from home actually transferred into Emerson sophomore year. And then her and I just ran it back. And so she joined in. And then it was sort of a threesome constant playing of The Sims between the 3 of us before dressing up to go to the dining hall. And then I'm proud to announce, Connor, by junior year, I did sort of meet some more individuals and, have a little bit more of a social life. But there was a long runway there.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Some of us need a longer runway to take off, and that's okay. And look at you now.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. That is so fun, though. Have you played The Sims in recent years at all, or was that kind of the last era for you?
I haven't. My friend, this best friend of mine from high school who we played together in college, she was recently pregnant and while pregnant, got back into it. And she told me, be very careful. If you ever choose to do this, know that you will lose your life for days.
Yes.
And I just don't have that kind of bandwidth right now. But I would like to. I really would. I'd love to set aside like a week to get back in.
Well, have I got some advice for you? You're going to want to get a little bit sick. And maybe you play The Sims, maybe you rewatch the OC, and you're just in a great place.
You know what we should do, Connor? I think we should coordinate around this.
Yes.
You're at your home sick watching DOC. I'm at my home sick playing The Sims. And then we'll do an episode where we report back. That
would be a great little time capsule episode. This might, who knows, maybe this is going to come up in the main event later for you. But oftentimes, like for people, whether it's like a soundtrack or like a TV series, like they will associate a game with that as well. Like I remember, for example, there's a game called Skyrim out there. And when I first like dove into that over a Christmas break, I was watching Freaks and Geeks for the first time. And I was in the middle of my first run of It's Always Sunny. I was like way late to the show. But those shows and that game are so tied specifically. So we're going to create one of those ourselves.
Okay.
That was a long, speaking of long runways, that was a long runway. I'm kind of surprised that I'm thankful, and gosh, I'm probably about to like doom us here. I'm surprised that like we didn't get sick at the same time this year, like getting COVID and maybe like seeing each other at Birds.
I know.
Or something.
Well, did you end up getting a really bad cold in January by chance?
I don't think so. Did you?
Yeah, I did, and some people on my Herald team did too.
That checks out.
Yeah. Herald Night is not meant to make you healthy and thriving. It's you're drinking till 2 a.m. You're shouting into everyone's face and they're shouting into yours.
Yes. Packing into theaters, into the green room. Yeah. Anyway, I'll kind of get us back here. Big The Sims fan. Who knows? Maybe if you get sick, you'll revisit it. So for you, are there any other significant games in your life post The Sims, or were those the ones we named kind of the hits for you?
That's the hits.
Nice. Yeah. Very cool. That being the case, once we got the hits out of the way, I was kind of curious, like, have you ever dabbled with like a game at a friend's house? Have you seen anything in the last few years, whether few to you means 2 or 10, that you've been like, oh, that's kind of interesting?
Well, my high school boyfriend played a lot of World of Warcraft.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I never asked to tap in, but I think that, and this is such a common female experience, I'm pretty sure I was around sometimes when he was playing himself. Yes. And that's not something that I am ever looking to replicate again. And he was a really nice guy, by the way. I just think for some reason that seemed normal at the time.
Yes.
That I was at his house and he was playing World of Warcraft. What was I doing? I have to ask myself.
Just sitting around being patient, maybe? I don't know.
I know. I hope not, but maybe.
Gosh.
So that comes to mind. Nothing else comes to mind.
That's okay. I wonder too, like you said you never tapped in. I've never played. Well, I tried World of Warcraft once when I did an episode with a friend on that game, actually, like 3 years ago. I downloaded it, played it for a night, and was like, this is fun, but I don't want to lose my life to this. Yeah. I feel like it kind of feels like to me there's some of your like Sims nature that maybe could translate to that.
Oh, really?
Not that I need to like wave a temptation in front of your face, but like I think there's a bit of not the addictive nature, but like the customization that might be intriguing to you.
Now, can you kill people in pools?
You know what? Do lakes or oceans count? Because I think that's maybe possible.
Is that possible? Okay, because that was big for me in The Sims.
Yeah, if we can take away all the exits to the lake. Well, Sid, thank you so much for walking us down, your history with games. And truly, there was more than enough there to talk about, and some really fun details. Big computer kid, as we found out. Mm-hmm. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll get into all things Christmas disaster. So I'll see you on the other side.
Great.
I can't believe our plane crashed. Where are we?
Jeremy, it seems we're in the underwater city of Rapture.
Would you kindly pick up that shortwave radio?
I sure don't want to, but I will.
I'm Atlas, and I aim to keep you alive by telling you about Super NPC Radio's upcoming BioShock Games Club series, only at patreon.com/supernpcradio. Would you kindly do that?
I didn't want to listen to an entertaining and funny Games Club series about the original BioShock before. But now I simply must.
I just inhaled some plasmids and I feel invincible.
Whoa! I can shoot electricity out of my mitts.
Would you kindly listen to the Games Club? It's available at the $5 DJ Toad tier with new episodes every Friday.
Weird. The more this guy asks us to do stuff, the more I want to do it.
Same. I might have to subscribe at the $5 DJ Toad tier at patreon.com/supernpcradio after all. Look! It's our friend Otacon!
Sure, Mr. Atlas. I'll piss myself, but only because you asked me specifically to do so.
I didn't ask you to piss yourself.
Whoa, that daddy sure is big.
Would you kindly get out of there? That thing will kill ya.
Maybe it's weak to piss?
I can't believe that worked.
All I heard was listen to the BioShock Games Club, and that's what I'm gonna do.
Welcome back to Call Me By Your Game. It is I, your host, Connor McCabe, here still with Sydney O'Toole.
Hello.
Sydney, welcome back.
Thanks.
You are so welcome. Before we get into, your personal experience with Christmas disaster, I want to do a little table setting for the listener and get out some history and context. But like I said before the show, if you want to jump in with any information that would be helpful, feel free.
Okay.
All right. But without further ado, here I go. Christmas Disaster is a 2001 simulation video game developed by Will Wright from Sims fame, in conjunction with Sierra Online that came out for Windows. I think it's 2001. I believe it says July 2001. This was a game where you play. It's a bit of like a North Pole simulation game. I believe it's like the run-up. I mean, I should have done more research, but I believe it's on the run-up to Christmas holiday. And depending on what part of the game you're in, you can have different levels of challenges, different types of challenges that come out to try to make sure that Christmas goes off without a hitch at the North Pole. There's a bunch of difficulty levels. So this first game came out in 2001. There was a planned sequel for 2003, it was supposed to come out in the year 2003, that ended up getting canned by Sierra. And so this is the only game in the series. I hadn't actually even heard of this one before, so I'm really excited to get into it. For you, Sydney, before we talk about your experience with it, are there any other details about this game, like bullet points that you feel are important to get out?
Yes. Let me think here. Now, I'll say this. Christmas Disaster came out in the wake of Y2K, of course.
Yes.
And let's all remember what a time that was. What a crazy time that was. Okay. And then, of course, 9/11.
Yes, right before.
Right before. So I think of it as a time, as a very specific time capsule. And while I have my own, personal associations with it that I can share, I think that, while it is kind of a lesser known, like Sims spinoff kind of thing, it really accidentally became historical in my mind.
Yeah, it's one of those games where I sort of have a hyper specific memory with dates and when stuff came out and associations. So like I can totally understand why this would stick in your mind between this time. I think this is a game that while I hadn't heard of before, I think I saw a friend. I had a friend growing up, my friend Nick Cash. His family had this is an important context, but they had a basement and they had the computer in their basement. That's where I played. There was like a Hot Wheels stunt track driver game. I'm sure you're familiar with Tomb Raider. They had Tomb Raider. And I think this is where I saw Christmas Disaster for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't want to spoil anything, but in the fun facts section about this game at the end of the podcast, I do have one of the fun facts that is tied to this time when it came out and a change that was made in later releases of the game.
Oh, I can't wait to hear.
Yeah. So kind of just foreshadowing that a bit. But why don't we get into your experience with Christmas Disaster? Do you remember how you even came to get this game? Was it something that you saw at a friend's house? Did you see it at a store? Was it just there at home that you remember? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah. So let's see. It was 2001. So I was in the 6th grade. For me, I think that it's different depending on what kind of schools you go to. But for me, that was the entrance to middle school. Okay.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And
for where I grew up, well, it depended on the district, I think. But mine was like K through 6, and then junior high was 7, 8, and then high school.
Yes. See, I know. So sometimes 6th graders are still get to be in elementary school. For me, it was a big call up to middle school.
Wow.
And so it was a fraught time where I was, kind of entering the throes of adolescence. I had a nemesis at my middle school who was named Rachel, who was throwing my items away in the trash constantly. She would go into my locker and she would take my things and she would throw them away.
Oh my gosh, that's awful.
I know.
I'm sorry.
It was a bad time. Me and my best friend were fighting. My best friend to this day had a terrible falling out in middle school. So anyway, I'm just setting the scene. I'm saying, 6th grade, I was really, it was an emotionally fraught time for me.
Yes.
Now,
more like Sydney Disaster, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yes. Now, I remember it was Christmas. It was like Christmas time, early December, 2001, 6th grade. I enter the Target on Harbor Boulevard in Costa Mesa with my family. We're there to, check out their Christmas tree lot in the back. And featured in the electronics section as we're getting towards the back of the Target where there's the tree lot, I see this thing marketed as a Sims spinoff.
Oh, wow.
And I had gotten into Sims the previous year.
Okay, interesting.
And I threw an absolute fit. That's what I remember, Connor. I remember it was like a moment where like all the personal stress that I was going through in middle school that I couldn't quite explain to my parents. Yes. It was like it all bubbled to the surface in the form of me demanding that they purchase me Christmas Disaster.
Oh my gosh. Like this is my mission at this moment.
Yeah.
This is the only thing that's going to make me happy. What a moment for you. That's a big deal. And I think you're getting us there, but it worked.
Yeah, it worked surprisingly. I think they felt bad for me. I think my parents felt bad for me because they weren't normally just buying me shit that I wanted. But I think they could tell that it was like, acne was starting to form on my face. I was confused. I had just recently gotten my first period. my best friend and I were in a falling out. They were probably overhearing me crying in my bedroom.
Yes.
A lot.
You needed a victory.
Yeah, I did. And it came that day in the form of Christmas disaster.
That's amazing. So this is not an important detail, but was the Christmas tree lot was like in the sort of Target parking lot, or was it nearby?
Yeah, I don't know if the Target in your hometown had this or Targets in suburbs you're familiar with. Yeah, it's usually, it's weird. It's like some Targets are so big, I think, that they have like almost like back lots.
Yes.
Where they can have Christmas tree lots.
Yes, this makes sense. Yeah, just enormous, like sprawling parking lot that they could
concrete spaces.
They could take up, I don't know, 50 spots for a Christmas tree farm. This is, excuse me, specific detail from my life. My family is a fake tree family. I'm sorry to admit that today. Yes.
No need to apologize. I'm fascinated by this.
I think what happened was that when I was really young, we got a real tree, and it was a kind of a classic like situation where it somehow leaks onto the hardwood floor. And so I think after that, my parents were like, never again. Mm-hmm. And so they've had fake trees ever since I can remember. And I've not gotten a tree for my place, but I have like this little fluorescent light up tree that's truly like, I can't do it on the monitor. It's not very big. It's like 2 feet tall. But unimportant detail that I was sharing with you. So I didn't have a lot of experience with Christmas tree lots, is I guess what I was trying to say.
Yeah, totally. Yes. Well, and I'm sorry to alienate you in that way.
Oh, I don't feel alienated at all. You're
good. I'll
totally
stop
cool.
talking about it now that I know.
It's actually really hurting my heart.
Yeah.
All your happy Christmas tree memories. Well, so you got the game. This is amazing. What do you remember about the game itself? Like, what still sticks out to you to this day about Christmas Disaster?
So first of all, you open every time on December 13th, which is my birthday. Oh my gosh,
that's amazing.
I know.
Now you're like immediate connection to this game.
Exactly. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. I felt very seen, I think.
Yes.
That every time you start gameplay, it's like December 13th in the North Pole,
Amazing.
So that's a big memory. And
was it one of those things where, because it opens on, I should have done more research, when it opens on December 13th, to me that implies that like, it's sort of like, I mean, it's a Sims related game. So is it like you have basically 2 weeks or till Christmas, a little less than 2 weeks? What can you do in this time, sort of thing?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
And so you might
Let's make Christmas stressful.
I know. Well, you might guess from the name that a disaster has occurred. So that's the deal. Is you start and it's December 13th, and Santa has a disaster on his hands.
Oh no.
Yeah, and you can start in different with different disasters.
Okay.
I would say.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. So you can play like different locations in the North Pole.
Oh my gosh.
So there's like there's Santa's workshop, right?
Yes.
But then there's also a Christmas tree lot, actually, speaking of Christmas tree lots.
Because they got to have trees up there too.
Exactly. This is kind of weird to look back on, but Santa in this universe has a lot of extended family. And you can do a gameplay in Santa's uncle's apartment.
Wow.
Which seems really weird.
That is strange, but that's funny.
But it's really funny. I know it was really funny. And so you would pick the location in the North Pole you wanted to start in.
Yes.
And there would have been depending on which location you picked, a different disaster has already occurred.
That's really fun. That adds to like the replayability of it. Like,
exactly.
If you want to play it again, you can start somewhere else and it's going to be kind of still a disaster, but maybe a slightly different scenario?
Exactly. It's a little reminiscent of like expansion packs for like The Sims, where it's like, guess what? Now you can play university,
Yes.
Yeah.
That's cool. Now, one question that I have about the game is that is this a game where you get to like customize a character that you play as who's solving these problems? Do you play as Santa? I didn't really dive into the details too far.
Yeah, great question. So in this game, you are a consultant.
Awesome.
Yeah. You're like a Christmas consultant.
Oh.
Is what they call it.
I love that.
And yes, there is customization in the form of you yourself, you can only see, it's not like The Sims where like you've created a little character that walks around.
Sure.
You can only see your right hand in the corner.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like almost
so it's like a first person perspective.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yes, it's very fun. And you can customize your hand. And so I used to spend hours.
Yes.
Hours on just the hand.
Oh, yeah.
You could do rings. You could paint the nails. There were gloves.
Yes. You can actually tell a lot about a person by just looking at their hand. So this makes sense to me.
Totally. I have to do a commercial audition later where they're having me film just my hands during the slate.
And I want to criticize them, but they can learn a lot about you from that. So I guess I'll hold off.
Yeah, hold off.
Do you have like one hand in particular on a playthrough that like sticks out to you? Like one that you designed that was particularly memorable?
Absolutely. Lacy glove.
Oh, a lacy glove.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's amazing.
For me, the lacy glove was like a suit of armor. No matter which location I was in, Santa's uncle, Santa's aunt, there was this really crazy one where you could play at the animal hospital where he put his, get this, dog.
Oh.
Isn't that weird?
What? Oh
you never hear of Santa having a dog. You hear about the reindeers. But yeah, they decided that during the month of December in this universe, Santa had to put his dog at the vet because he was too busy to care for it.
Yes.
And you could do a whole gameplay over at the vet.
Oh.
Anyway, I discovered that this lace glove, it was like a silver bullet.
That's amazing. So like the world is sort of like reacting to however your hand is designed or styled. That implies like the reactions of the world. That's really clever.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm learning so much about this game from you. Again, apologies for not doing more research on this. This is really good stuff. Now, do you remember like on leading up to Christmas, trying to solve all of these problems to hopefully not let it go off to hopefully not let it be a Christmas disaster.
Exactly.
Was there a scenario or like a challenge that was particularly tough or memorable to you looking all the way back?
Oh yeah. 100%.
Oh.
And I'll say this. One word. Dasher.
Oh.
You know that reindeer?
I know the guy.
Let me tell you what. That guy and I have been enemies ever since the 6th grade. We really have. Because I don't care what location I was in, Dasher would somehow find his way there and make a damn mess.
Oh my gosh. No.
I know. And so part of the challenge of any of the locations you were playing in was how to keep Dasher distracted.
Oh, wow.
And I tried everything, Connor. I mean,
You're trying reindeer food.
Of course I'm trying reindeer food.
Yeah.
I'm trying sleeping pills that you can buy at the little, a lot of people didn't know this, but there was a little like snack shack.
Oh.
Near Santa's workshop. And if you had a certain if you clicked on it was I remember in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, if you clicked on this little candy cane set they were selling, it would flip around sleeping pills.
Oh my gosh.
Dark, actually, when you look back at it.
This, even just the details you're sharing with me about this game, it feels so rich, and there's a lot of love put into the details and a lot of reward for the player if you spend time with it and investigate.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Dasher, by the way, is really, that sounds like, so we played a game this fall. We do a games club every quarter for our Patreon network where we play through one game in a quarter, sort of like a book club format where we go chapter by chapter, essentially. We talked about a game last fall called Resident Evil 2 Remake, where there's not a reindeer, but there's a Dasher-like character, this big guy named Mr. X, who at a certain point in the game, no matter where you are, he can just show up and kill you. And so Dasher sounds like an influence to Mr. X, sort of like an early prototype version.
It probably was, yeah. I mean, as I've shared, I'm not a huge gamer, so I don't have the lineage on all that, but it would not surprise me if that creator was influenced by Dasher.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to do some digging later. That's really cool.
Yeah. He was tough. He was really tough. And I remember I had this cheat code I finally discovered.
Oh.
Yeah. There was this cheat code and you would type in Miami Vice.
Uh-huh.
And it would automatically send Dasher to Florida for 20 whole minutes of real time.
Oh, huge.
Which is, in gameplay you can get a lot done in 20 minutes.
Yeah, that might be a whole couple days in the calendar.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I remember one time I was, where was I? I must have been in Santa's teenage daughter's Honda Civic.
Oh my goodness.
Which was a really fun location you could play in.
I think I saw this character. She's on the cover art as well. Cassandra, I think was her name, but they have I don't know why, but it has her name in quote. It says Cassandra, and then in quotes, Sandy Claus.
I know. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which I didn't even get the joke until just now. I truly did not get it until now.
And that's the thing about Christmas Disaster is it's like a gift that keeps on giving, pun intended. Christmas gift that keeps on giving. Yeah.
That is so...
Yeah, Sandy's Honda Civic. It's so funny to me that they made it look so similar to a Honda Civic. It was kind of did you guys get the rights for that?
Yeah. It's kind of like a muddy time where developers and games could get away with more of not licensing as much stuff.
Totally.
There are some games, there's a game in particular from the 90s that called Earthbound that very clearly is playing a tune that is Good Morning from the Beatles, but just the opening of it.
Ooh.
So it's kind of it was a muddier time, so that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah. Okay, funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have something else you were going to share? Because I was going to ask you a question.
I was just going to say that I remember this time that I was really struggling in Sandy's Honda Civic because whole thing is that you're trying to get her to not go see her boyfriend.
Okay,
that is on the wrong side of the tracks, literally. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
And so what your whole job is to prevent the disaster this time is keep her, close to home.
Yes.
And Dasher is a very bad influence on her.
Of course.
And I had to get him out of there because he kept offering to have her hop on his back and go I assume, they didn't say this, of course they didn't, but I assume have sex with her boyfriend, and I couldn't have that as the Christmas consultant. So anyway, I figured out the Miami Vice code. I got him sent to Florida for 20 minutes and I got her home safe and sound. In retrospect, it's of course philosophically, it's philosophically complex because I myself was a young woman at the time who had strict parents and was trying to come of age, come into my own. underneath a kind of a regime like that. And so the fact that I was helping Santa keep his daughter, I look back and I wonder.
It's a bit of like a mind fuck in a way. Like there will be things that, man, this game's amazing to me hearing about it, because there's so much that it feels like it influenced as well. Like there are games where you find yourself in a moral quandary, but because you're playing the game, do you do the thing that is maybe not like that you maybe don't agree with as a person or your character wouldn't? Like it's just, like you said, it's complex.
It is complex, and there's so much there's like God complex going on. Of course there is.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
And as the Christmas consultant, I mean, you could really mess up some North Poleans' lives.
I bet.
And I will admit that my darker nature took over sometimes, and I would, for instance, remove the exit from the Santa's Workshop toy zone and
I see.
Turn the heat up. Okay.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that sounds like, okay, you're making this choice, but it does make the elves work faster, and so therefore the whole toy shortage is solved, but like at what cost sort of thing?
And in a lot of ways it makes me wonder now, was this whole game a commentary on capitalism and consumption?
You know what? It's ahead of its time in a lot of ways.
A lot of ways. Yeah.
You have given me so many great details about this game itself. I want to dig in just for a few minutes a little more about the context of your life. You in fact, you kind of started this whole thing off with some great context. You said that, I mean, I know where you got this game and why you got this game. Can you do a little scene painting for me? Where was this? Because you said it was on the computer, I believe you said.
Yes.
What was the room like that your family's computer was set up? Set the scene.
Okay, well, I hate to brag, but at this point, I had convinced my parents to put a computer in my bedroom.
Okay, now we're talking.
And that was inspired by Lizzie McGuire. Big time.
Oh, huge. Yes.
Yep. Because there were all those scenes of her in her bedroom on AIM chatting with Gordo and Miranda. And she had a very cool colored kind of computer. And she was wearing all her little clips in her hair. And I obviously used homework as the guys, but somehow I think my parents might have upgraded their PC in the landing that I was talking about earlier, where I used to play Zoom Beanies. And so I got the old PC in my bedroom. Huge. Yeah. And this was around the time when I also had my bedroom repainted from what used to be pink walls with horse wallpaper.
Oh, yes.
Okay. to a very adult blue.
Oh. Like, was this like a dark blue? Like, was the sky blue?
Not a sky blue. Sky blue too juvenile. This was like a, oh man, like a denim, blue. Okay, I would say.
Wow, that is very adult.
Yeah, and there were a lot of posters of Hanson on the wall.
Nice.
So denim blue, posters of Hanson, huge silver boombox.
Oh, amazing.
Is what you would have seen behind me if I had like a webcam on or something.
Yes. And
then on the desk there by my bed, my big PC.
Now that a couple questions about your room, because I'm putting myself in my childhood bedroom. Was the monitor facing the door, kind of like how my door is right there, or was it?
No, because you can't have that.
Nice. Oh, cool. I just had to ask.
You can't have that. I had so much AIMing to do, and I also had I needed to print out the conversations often. So mostly what I was doing was on AIM, updating my profile on there, or bio, or what did we call it?
It may have been bio.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Something like that. And then printing out important conversations with boys. And anyway, I couldn't have a parent walking in and seeing any of that.
Yes.
So
would you print these out because you were like, I want to make Trent says he has a crush on me. I want to make sure I have this in writing.
Yeah, I want the receipts. I think so, because it was like, I don't know. It wasn't like Instagram where like your DMs are there.
Yeah.
It's like you had to print it, or they went, or the conversation
get like
went away.
wiped.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I was asking about the setup in your room because, well, for like where the computer was, because I like had a nice childhood bedroom until I moved out to go to college. Weirdest thing about my room, it had 2 entrances. There was the door to the main hallway in our house, like just an opening door. And then there was also a sliding door on the opposite wall that opened into my dad's office. So this wasn't a problem for me at the time because I wasn't a kid that had really much to hide. I was very much a goody two-shoes for the most part. But it was kind of like at any time, it felt like anybody could come in either door. Like,
yeah,
there's no
tough.
safe spot.
That's really tough.
So I was just kind of curious. You had shared so many great details about your, some of the stuff you were already going through. So we don't have to rehash that. But is there any detail about your life at that time, or like any whether it's general or specific, that you wanted to share?
Yes, there is. I had a boyfriend in 6th grade for 7 days.
Huge.
Thank you.
Yes.
Actually,
nice.
Oh my God.
We're getting the balloon reaction too because we're on Zoom. This is great. The YouTube watchers will see it, but audio's like, what am I missing?
It's like, why is Zoom listening so well that they were able to send balloons when I said I had a boyfriend for 7 days?
Yeah.
That's
I mean, first of
impressive.
all, thank you, but also invasion of privacy.
Invasion of privacy, absolutely. Yeah. Stop listening. Yeah, so his name was Nick, and here's what was going on. He was objectively hot. He was objectively nice. He checked the boxes. He asked me out. I said yes.
Yes.
We were together for 7 days. We never spoke.
Yes.
I literally do not have a memory of ever speaking to him during those 7 days. Yeah. And ultimately what happened is I called it off via, of course, AIM, because I had this inner conversation with myself where I was like, this person checks the boxes. You do not feel anything for this person.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Kind of feels like a mature take.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
If I'm interpreting that correctly.
No, I'll take that and receive it and agree. But I think this is all to say, it was a fraught 7 days.
Oh.
Fraught. And what do I remember? I remember that it was Christmas time.
Yes.
And I was playing a lot of Christmas Disaster.
Wow. Gosh,
and
maybe distracting yourself?
Well, yeah. And I also think like kind of working it out via the characters. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you can, maybe this isn't exactly what you mean, but sometimes you can turn your brain off and do sort of like a mindless activity, like playing a game while your gears are sort of spinning.
Yes,
almost
100%.
Interesting.
Well, and also with Christmas Disaster, there was a relational element that you could tap into. Yeah. So especially, it really played out with the elves.
Yes.
So with the elves, you could have them start dating. The balloons are going off on the Zoom
Insane.
again. It's crazy. You could have them start dating, and you could break them up. And
goodness.
And all of this was in service of like hopefully abating a Christmas disaster.
Yes.
Solving the one you started with, like you could use it essentially as a tool to to like fix the problems, etc.
Interesting, yeah.
So I remember this one time there were these 2 elves, Glitter and Nancy.
Oh my goodness.
And I had started on a scene play where there was a disaster in the shop because all of this wood had gotten very wet for these toys.
Yes.
And it was just rank in there, and this wood was like rotted. Okay.
Yes.
So you had to figure out how to reconstruct these wooden toys in time for Christmas Eve. Okay.
Yes.
And I came up with this thing where I was like, you know what? Glitter's an engineer. Nancy has great little hands. And I bet she'd be a very good woodworker, but I don't think she has the engineerial mind that Glitter does.
Yes.
If I could get them to basically fall in love.
Oh,
okay?
And like collaborate?
Yes. And anyway, it worked, not to brag.
Amazing.
It worked. One of my most successful games that I remember. But I do think part of it was I was kind of working out, like, what are the reasons to date someone, kind of?
Yes.
Like, what happens when two people who seem kind of like diametrically opposed, when they get to,
Yeah.
It was related somehow.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. It's so funny that there was not an exact parallel for your relationship, but just like something to sort of bounce off of in the game, and like bounce like your thought, like your almost like subconscious thoughts off of in this relationship between Glitter and Nancy.
Yeah, exactly. Weird, right?
That's very bizarre, but like I'm so glad that you had that at the time and that you even interacted with that element of the game, because it's so sprawling.
Totally. I know. I'm so glad I found it. I will also say out loud, weird naming of the elves.
Yeah. Interesting.
I don't know what they were doing there. And I'm sort of like, maybe my memory's wrong. Maybe it wasn't Nancy. Maybe it was like Glitter and like something also kind of like fun and like.
Sure. Yeah. I should look that. I'll look that up later, and I'll text you if I find any info.
Let me know. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Sid, I feel like we heard just such, like, I love the detail we've gotten about your life, but also it's been so fun to dive into this, like, really interesting game that I haven't been familiar with. Before we move on to the end of show segments, will you do me a favor and just sort of, like, put a bow on whatever place Christmas disaster held for you at the time?
Yes. The bow I'll put on it is preteen angst.
There we go.
And I don't know what color that bow is, but
but it's complicated.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Gosh. Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that. And we got just a few more minutes left, but thank you so much for bringing this game on the show. It was so fun to hear from you about that.
Oh, it was so fun to talk about. I haven't talked about it in like forever. So this was really fun.
Well, I love it. Before we go, though, I'll lead us into our post-show segments. The first of which is the Fact Me by Your Game segment. And these are just fun facts, Sydney, that I share with my guest about the game. These I got from the YouTube channel, one of my favorite YouTube channels about video games called Did You Know Gaming? And I've got two fun facts for you today. The first of which I have titled Disaster Master. Now, normally in this game, like from what I've gathered, is that if things do go awry too much, normally, you get essentially like a game over screen, or once you get to the end of the calendar, when Christmas hits, you basically get a thumbs down like you lost. There is one critical path, however, that if you can somehow manage to make every little thing go wrong in the game, then you actually end Christmas, like in the game world forever. Like they cancel Christmas from there on out if you basically fuck everything up. And you kind of you have to be intentional about this. It's not something you can just stumble into. Did you know about this?
No, I had no idea.
Yes. Apparently, like one of the things you have to do is if you can find a way to, this is one of the harder ones to do. Speaking of Dasher, if you can trick Dasher into accidentally setting the reindeer barn on fire, then all of the reindeer basically scatter across the North Pole, and it's basically impossible to like gather all 10 of them again.
And so Santa has no transpo, and so Christmas. Wow.
So that's like one of there's like a whole chain of like events you have to get to occur because with not enough of them, they'll be upset, but Christmas will still happen. So yeah, that's like kind of like a secret in the game.
Wow, my mind's blown.
Bonkers. And then the second one, I have titled Untimely Events. Now, as we were talking about, this game came out in July of 2001, post Y2K, pre 9/11. The versions of this game that were released basically July through October, they actually issued a re-release. So the version that you played, I can't say for sure what version it would have been, but they had an update where in an early version of the game, there's actually like a bombing that happens at the North Pole. That's one of like the disaster elements. And it's sort of like there are these, this is wild, but there used to be, and I guess we could check if your parents happen to have the box.
Yeah.
It'll tell you, because on the earlier versions, there's 2 large candy canes that sort of tower over the town. And when this bombing happens, they crack and like the candy cane dust like shoots out everywhere. This is one of the disasters. In the updated version, they took that out because of the events that happened on September 11th.
Of course.
Yes.
Wow.
It's not uncommon for like a re-release of a game to like have a controversial element taken out, and this is like one of the more like ones that they tried to keep hush hush actually.
Yeah, right, because they wish they hadn't done it in the first place, probably.
Yeah. So
I'm surprised to I'm not surprised, but it is an interesting one to bring up because most of the disasters were fairly cutesy looking back.
Yes.
Like the wood one I described, where it's kind of like, oops, the wooden toys are rotted.
Totally.
The bombing, it's surprising they did it.
And I think it actually works well, based on what you've described, that it's not in the game, even outside of the like world events that were going on. But anyway, that'll do it for the Fact Me By Your Game segment. I'll lead us into the final one for today's episode, the game recommendations. Now, Sydney, this is my one forced tie-in to the movie Call Me By Your Name, where I'm going to treat Christmas Disaster as your Army Hammer, your passionate summer love that you met in Italy. But because it's not going to work out, in order to help you get over this heartbreak, I've got 3 recommendations for some possible flings for you to, go out and put yourself out there again.
Wonderful.
The first of which is if you like a cast of characters and you just love the winter time, snow is your thing, then I'll actually recommend to you the South Park video game for Nintendo 64. Fair to assume you never played this?
No.
Yeah. It coincidentally is also a first-person perspective video game where you are playing as a kid in the town of South Park. And, so if the characters were like the big thing for you in this game, then that would be maybe something for you to check out. Your second recommendation is that if you if the disaster element was the thing for you, you actually like seeing things go wrong instead of helping them work out, then I will recommend to you a game called Burnout Paradise. Are you familiar with the Burnout series at all?
No.
This is a game, it's basically sort of like a game where you're playing as a car and you crash into other cars and vehicles and stuff, and you get points for like the bigger wreck you cause, the more points you get.
Wow. Fun.
Yes.
Sounds disastrous.
It's very disastrous. It's a fun sort of arcade game where you basically just put your foot on the pedal and you just smash into stuff. So that's your second recommendation. And then your final recommendation is if what you took away from this game is that you just love Christmas. Christmas is your thing, and the elves in this game spoke to you, then I'm not even going to recommend a game. I'm going to recommend a video from the early 2000s called Elf Yourself. Do you remember this series of videos, Elf Yourself, where you would basically put images of you and your friends into this program? It was a website where you put like pictures of you and your friends, and they animated these elves dancing around, but they would put your faces where their faces were.
Oh, that actually does sound familiar.
I think if we look, I think it was called Elf Yourself. I should have, why didn't I?
That does sound familiar.
Elf Yourself. Yes, it truly, yeah. It's exactly what I remember. That's so silly. So that'll do it for your game recommendations. We have a South Park video game for N64. We have, what was my second recommendation? Oh, Burnout 2.
Yes.
And then we have not even a game, the Elf Yourself video. That'll do it for the Rex, and that'll actually bring us to the end of the show. So before we go and plug whatever we want, again, Sydney, thanks for coming on. This was so much fun having you on the podcast.
It was so much fun. Such a big fan of yours. Such a big fan of this game we got to talk about.
Yes.
What a dream. Thank you. I can't thank you enough.
Of course. Well, on our way out, is there anything you want to plug? Anywhere you want people to find you on the internet? No is also a perfectly acceptable answer.
You can find me at my vehicle in Los Angeles, trying desperately to clean the damn car seats.
Yes, we're
and
back.
If you have a recommendation for how to do that better than the fancy Bissell machine that I purchased that didn't get it done, please contact Connor and get my contact information.
Huge. Yes, I can be the sort of liaison. I'll pass that info along.
Thank you.
Well, great. I also, what a perfect callback to your poor car seats. That's great. I'll go ahead and close this out, Sydney, with some plugs of my own. The cover art for Call Me By Your Game is done by Glenn J. You can find him and his other great work on Instagram at Glenn with 2 N's.jay. And Glenn recently made a piece of fan art for us in honor of our 200th episode. That's on our Instagram and stuff. So check that out. Give him a thanks. He's the best. The show is produced, edited, and the original music at the top is by Jeremy Schmidt. You should check out his podcast, Video Games, a Comedy Show. You can find me on social media at most places at Connor_McCabe. I'm on Twitch at twitch.tv/consiscool69, where I just finished Half-Life 2 series, and I'm going to be playing other stuff, probably BioShock for our next Games Club. You can find the show all over social media at Call Me By Your Game Pod. There's links in the show notes. And yeah, check us out on Patreon. If you like the conversations I have with people about video games, there's a lot of bonus great stuff for you there at patreon.com/super NPC Radio. That'll do it for today's episode of Call Me By Your Game. We will see you on the next one.